Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Success Series, and today we are going live with Tim Hughes. He is a well-known social selling and digital transformation expert. And Tim, over to you. If you could please do the honors with a short introduction. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me on. My name's Tim Hughes. My Twitter address is Timothy_Hughes. That's TIMOTHY_HUGHES. I am CEO of a company called Digital Leadership Associates. And what we do is that we help people with social transformation. So that's using social as a way of transforming your organization to gain incremental revenue and competitive advantage. One of those elements is social selling. So I'm the author of the best-selling book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Sure. Thank you, Tim.
So Tim, the first question is, what is social selling according to you?
Social selling isn't actually selling. It's actually a way of salespeople can react to the changes that have taken place on the internet. So, for example, the way that we buy things have changed. We now go onto the internet. We now go and research things. We don't need to talk to a salesperson. From very small items to even very large items, we'll go online, we'll do research, we'll read articles, we'll read content. And what social selling really is a reaction to the change in that buying process.
Question 2. Tim, what is the biggest pushback that you have ever received from a new company, when you have started to evangelize your social selling practice?
Well, social selling is a change in mindset. So it requires people to, while they may carry on doing similar things that they've done before, it also means that they need to change some of the habits that they have. Changing the way that people work can be both hard and easy. For example, one of the things that people don't like nowadays is to be sold to. In fact, what we do is we avoid that. So one of the things that it's actually quite difficult to get over to people is that if you start selling to people straight away, they're likely to just treat you as a spammer and block you, and then you won't get very far. So that's why I wouldn't use the term. It's wrong really to use the term social selling, because it's not really selling.
Okay.
How difficult is it to consult on the social selling practices to a team that is still an ardent believer in the age-old practices of push selling? Is that extremely difficult, or what are the challenges that you normally face?
If you think about normal training, we've all been on training classes where someone turns up with 150 PowerPoints, and you probably go away remembering one thing, and you go back to your desk and go, that was really interesting, and then you go back to doing what you did before. So if we're trying to solicit a change in the way that people are working, it's you've got to make sure that you're not training, you're actually coaching and mentoring. One of the things that we do is that we actually break down the coaching into small bite-sized pieces so that people actually have time to think. And I think it's really important that people actually have time to think about their personal brand and what that means. They think about the message that they're putting out on social, because we all jump to conclusions. And what we want to do is we want to get our customers and prospects to jump to the conclusion that we want them to.
How much time do you spend on conducting research on a certain prospect before you actually approach them on a social platform?
Ways that you can use social to prospect. There's the way that you can connect to people. So similar to the way that you would cold call. In terms of the time that you need to research, it's really down to you to decide whether you feel that you've researched that person, and you've actually found the thing I think you need to be looking at is that you will find that you need to make sure that you're focusing your connection, if you're reaching in that particular way, that it's totally focused on that individual, not only in terms of their wants and needs, but also in terms of you're not focusing on yourself and your product and your features and functions, but actually how you can actually help the other person. The other thing, the way that you can work with social selling is if you think about the way that when we cold called, we ring someone up and we'd say, and they'd say, yeah, interesting, but can you give me a call back in 3 months? What we're able to do from a social perspective is that we're actually able to put out content, so you're actually able to nurture those people, and you're also able, you should be putting out content so that people find that content. So when they're actually doing their own research, what you'll find is that you should be getting inbound, and if you're not getting inbound, you're not doing social selling correctly.
How important is LinkedIn in the GDPR world, according to you?
LinkedIn is GDPR compliant because you're in effect putting your data in there. I think LinkedIn is now recognized as being the business-to-business platform for 560 million people on LinkedIn. So that gives you a great opportunity to sell to those 560 million. So I think it's critical, but we also need to be looking at things like Instagram, Twitter. If you're selling to people within an IT perspective, Twitter's really important. And Facebook is as well. There's a lot of Facebook groups. Groups on LinkedIn has pretty much died. Most of the groups now are taking place on Facebook. Which
social channels would you recommend and why?
I think everybody needs to be, if we're selling business to business, everybody needs to be on LinkedIn. And you need to have what we would call a buyer-centric profile. So a profile that if somebody comes across you, they don't necessarily see that you're either a spammer or somebody looking for a job, or an outright salesperson, because nobody gets up in the morning to a salesperson. So what you need to do is make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile that is attractive to buyers. There's a lot of people in IT. I think Instagram is useful as well, because what you'll find is that people are posting pictures, which is what Instagram is, and because you don't actually have to write anything, and I think that people actually find that short form quite useful. Then move out towards Twitter and Instagram if you can.
Is influencer marketing a part of your social selling strategy as well?
Influencer marketing is something that you just need to be quite careful about, because there's people out there that are deemed to have influence and they don't. The thing about influencer marketing is that it's a very much a top of the funnel sort of thing. So it will get you to people that you probably don't have access to already.
Right.
So if you're running events, so if you think about a classic sales and marketing environment where people are running events, there's salespeople talking to existing clients, you already know those people. And what influencer marketing will do is actually get to, for example, my audience. My audience is more, but you've got to remember, my audience is more interested in me than the brand. And sometimes brands have difficulty with that because they think that their ever presence and that their brand is everything. And in fact, it's not. So they need to be, quite often people have difficulty with influencer marketing.
So Tim, what is the first thing that you do as a company while starting to imbibe social selling practices as a part of your overall strategy?
There's two ways to go about it. There's either top down or bottom up. Classic happens usually is that it's bottom up. So usually what they should do is they run a pilot, and what they do is that they would activate the people that are probably generally already on. Biased because I run a company that helps people with social selling, so I would obviously say that you need to get a third party in. But the trick is not just about activating the one or two ninjas, but also activating everybody across the organization, and that's the difficulty. And also making sure that you're changing people's habits. So I for example, my previous company, we tried to roll out social selling by getting as many people we could on a webinar, and nothing happened. Because with webinars, people generally didn't. If you didn't want to watch, you just sit there and do email, or eat your lunch, or read a newspaper, or whatever. So it's. In terms of if an organization is going to go it alone, they need to start by activating the people that understand social, and then using those people as in the organization. That's bottom up. Top down is to make sure that you're organization management actually know that they should be using social. People generally find that a little bit more difficult in the Western world because social, or they don't understand some of the things that are going on. Or I've even been told they're too scared to go to the management and say, we need to be doing this.
Tim, I completely understand where you're coming from. I think it's more about the preconceived notions that if you're not sending 100 emails a day or making 100 calls a day, you're not doing enough. So is that more of a mindset related challenge that you usually face, or is there more to it?
It is, and I think that we come across a lot of people that say, well, just the same as I did. We were brought up on cold calling, but 2 years. And we're actually going into meetings now. I actually had meetings now with marketeers in advertising's not working, with GDPR, they can't email people, cold calling's not working, and people are concerned and are scared because they've done the same things for the last 10 or 20 years and it's just not working anymore. And we're getting this from a lot of companies now.
So Tim, what are the 3 things that as a company you can do to build trust through social selling practices?
The number one thing that you should do, and actually probably one of the most radical things to do, social. And that's sometimes quite difficult for organizations because marketing often see that as a way of they're losing control. To us and saying that nothing's working anymore, you've actually got to start, radical times have got to come up with radical ideas. And what you have in your employees is that each person in your company is an accumulation of their experiences. And what you need to try and do is activate all those people, because if people are out there searching for your products and service and they're doing it online and they're doing it in a way where they're not contacting you, then what you need to do is making sure that you're putting out information that they're going to find. And the best way to do that is not to use corporate marketing, which says, hey, we're really great, we're number one, we're the best, because everybody says that, but actually get people within your organization in their own voice talking about your product. Sure. So that would get you the biggest result, though it's probably the most radical answer.
Of course.
The thing is that you need to have a decent, so people use the term personal brand. I kind of feel that sometimes personal brand is something that you can't really achieve, or people feel that they can't achieve it. And I think that what we need is you need to have a position on social that when people find you, that they're actually going to recognize you and want to convert and talk with you. And the second thing is that you need to be sharing content. So you need to be writing it, but you also need to be sharing it. People need to, if a person that is, if you go to someone's LinkedIn profile, you go, oh, someone's talking about digital marketing. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, and then they look further. Oh, that's a really interesting article. That's what they're looking for. And they're looking for, you don't actually have to write all the articles, but if you're sharing things, I think that's what people are looking for. And they're looking for an understanding that you are the solution to their problem. You should be writing yourself. You need to be sharing insightful and entertaining content, and you need to have a personal brand. And the key thing about social right now is everybody's pretty rubbish at it. So if you're actually okay, you actually be better than everybody else. So it's not about because I can assure you that everybody who watches this video, only 5% of people will go away and do something. Therefore, people shouldn't be worried that all of a sudden everyone's going to be online and great. Quite the opposite. Most people won't take the time to actually be good online. Okay. Do I think that people go online and research? Yes. I can't remember a Christmas where I haven't been on and researched all the things and then bought all the presents. The same with whether you're buying a car or whether you're buying a £500,000 outsourcing deal. I can guarantee you that, and whether it's 57%, 80%. I mean, I know of people within an accounting software company where the salespeople have been phoned up and they've said, we want to buy your accounting software. Can you just tell me how much it is? Kind of like 95%. So yes, definitely people are going online and researching. And if you're not getting those sort of things in terms of the inbound, then you've got to master this. Is social selling or social marketing? It's a kind of a bit of both. Now, I'm a great believer in from a sales perspective that you need to prospect, and prospecting is in a way marketing, and finding opportunities or finding people to talk to is something that you should have, and all salespeople should be doing. Now,
so do you agree that almost 80% of the research is done online and before a prospect actually approaches a company for their solution or their service? If yes, then is social selling more of a marketing driven practice, or is it also sales driven to a certain extent?
They're always online. CEB, now Gartner, have research that shows that it's not just 35%, 57%, it's 100% of the way through the buying process. And if you're going to buy a $500,000 outsourcing deal, then you're probably researching content very early on in terms of the players in the market. But you're also probably researching things like asking questions. Has anybody got a board report? I've got to take a or you're consuming articles about where these things could go wrong, because if you're going to present to the board, you want to make sure that you've got the answers. So people are actually using social the buyers are using social through the whole of the way through the buying process, from 0 to 100%. And sellers can be doing that as well. You can actually accelerate your sales by using content through, in effect, moving people through the pipeline. Because if you're putting out educational, desire building, insightful content, why wouldn't your prospects want to move faster? Because if you've got something that they want and you think, and it can make a business.
Thank you, Tim. Would you like to recommend a set of tools that a company should use while imbibing social selling as a practice, especially for their sales and marketing org?
There are some, I mentioned some tools in my book. In terms of the tools that we use Brandwatch, we use Leadfeeder, and we use Buffer, and I use Flipboard on my mobile to get content. Apart from that, I don't really use a lot of tools. We use Sales Navigator. I don't use it myself, but my colleague who trains people on Sales Navigator, we use that. The thing that we need to be careful about tools is there's an old saying that a fool with a tool is still a fool.
So when a company is undergoing digital transformation, how do they decide which part to handle internally and which part to essentially outsource?
What we do is that as an organization is that we've actually designed programs to not only activate people at a very senior level within the organization, so senior directors, so that we have board level commitment, C-level commitment, and they're the people that would actually say this is the way that we're going. We've also developed programs to cover marketing, sales, procurement, supply chain, HR, to enable us to use social right across all departments. Social selling is the one that we're generally talking about right now. We have resellers in the different market areas. So in America, we have Americans delivering our program. In the UK, we've got people from the UK delivering our program. So generally what we're looking for is we're building up that reseller program so that we're actually able to give consistency, not only in terms of methodology, but also making sure that, well, we don't have an Indian reseller, but in India, what we would like to have is Indians delivering our methodology in local language with local customs and local and localizations.
Information security is of paramount importance. I mean, that is a fact. But how do we inculcate the sense of responsibility? When especially into our sales and marketing teams, when we are driving on the information superhighway.
The difference is, I think what we're doing with data is that we're becoming more mature. We recognize that, how much of your mother's data would you like to be put on the internet? Like none of it. And I think that we need to sort of, we need to respect people's data. I think there's been a certain amount of a Wild West thing
Right.
that we've used it. Now we need to be GDPR means that you are responsible and accountable for any data that you hold. Deleted in our company, we've deleted anything where there's any email addresses or where there's any people's data. We have basically deleted it off our servers. So that's one way about it. And I think that marketers need to be at the forefront and leadership in terms of if they're holding people's data, they need to understand why and recognize the impact that if they get hacked, then the implications of that.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Should you have any questions, please do write in the comment section and we will revert ASAP. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.